you read this headline and you're like, you have got to be kidding me.
But it's not just in New York. I mean, is everyone having a freak off? I mean,
yes, but what interview did Donald Trump do this week? He did a Twitter Spaces with a crypto bro. Again, you're voting between two different candidates. Not perfect.
And said he was bigger than Elvis.
Correct.
All right, we've been down this road, but what about the substance of it? Do you think if someone breaks into your house, would you shoot him? Can you? Is that right? Is that the right thing to do?
I wouldn't choose to do that.
What would you do?
I'm not a gun person. I would hope that my husband would shoot that person. But
I'm not going to pre-hate everything. With that razor-sharp line, Bill Maher didn't just challenge his guest. He blew up the entire premise of knee-jerk political bias on live TV. During a tense exchange with MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle, Maher calmly but forcefully dismantled the media's approach to political coverage, especially regarding Donald Trump.
Well, I guess I'm the silly girl. Listen, he's talking Trump's book, which he needs to do right now as Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary. But the last time we imposed tariffs like this and engaged in a tariff war, it was 100 years ago, and it didn't just lead to a recession. It led to a depression. And I just want to say this about the tariffs. The spirit of them, I get.
This wasn't a typical Maher moment. It struck a nerve, went viral on social platforms, and reignited the debate about whether mainstream media is doing more harm than good. Viewers weren't just watching a debate. They were watching a media reckoning unfold in real time. Bill Maher, the long-standing host of HBO's Real Time, has carved a niche as an unfiltered critic of both left-wing orthodoxy and right-wing extremism. While he's often considered a liberal, Maher has increasingly distanced himself from partisan groupthink, calling out hypocrisy wherever he sees it. His clash with MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle in early 2025 was the culmination of months of growing frustration with what he calls the tribalism of modern media.
What did the panel think about Kamala's interview with Oprah and her admission not only that she has a gun, but she would shoot an intruder to her home? I think I applauded it. I mean, she had my vote, and I doubled down.
It was a surprise, and I think it's great to have that, right? So people keep, you love to look at a candidate and say, I know they're this, I assume they're that. So when she's sort of speaking this surprising truth that, when you look at a black woman candidate, she must mean X, Y, and Z. When she showed up and said, guess not, I'm this, I thought it was a positive.
Stephanie Ruhle, a former finance journalist turned MSNBC host, is known for her passionate defenses of democratic norms and her willingness to hold public officials accountable. But to Maher, her rhetoric, and that of MSNBC as a whole, has veered dangerously close to propaganda. Their on-air clash was more than just television. It was a cultural flashpoint that exposed fractures even among supposed ideological allies. At a time when trust in legacy media is at an all-time low, especially among independents and moderates, this conversation resonated far beyond the studio. Clips of the exchange racked up millions of views across Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Many viewers said what Maher voiced was what they'd been thinking for years.
Over the last few decades, we have lost millions of manufacturing jobs in this country. As globalization took place, we saw manufacturing take place on the other side of the world, right? China's economy grew, it lifted people there out of poverty, and we started to get cheap stuff here, and we like that. And companies were focused just on profitability, and your company could make more money if you manufactured your parts overseas. I get all of that. Yep. But the idea to impose these tariffs across the board, especially to our allies, to our brothers and sisters in Mexico and in Canada, all that's going to do is hurt all of us.
The central challenge at play here is one we're all feeling in 2025. How do we get truthful, balanced political discourse in a media environment dominated by outrage, partisanship, and performative narratives? News outlets are now as polarized as the politicians they cover. Right-leaning Americans dismiss MSNBC and CNN as elite echo chambers, while progressives accuse Fox News of running disinformation. Lost in the middle are average viewers, many of whom are politically exhausted, desperate for analysis that treats them like adults. Maher raised a concern that's become increasingly mainstream, that outlets like MSNBC aren't reporting on Trump or the right wing with enough nuance. Instead, every headline and segment feels like it's been preloaded with moral outrage. The problem with this, Maher argues, is that it undermines the credibility of valid criticism. If you call everything the end of democracy, then nothing really is. Stephanie Ruhle's defense of her network was, to her credit, heartfelt.
All of this can be overwhelming, but it is important to remember there are still checks and balances. There's a lot being thrown at the American people right now, and it is really important to pay attention to it. But it is just as important to recognize how many of those things are getting announced, but they're not happening at all, or at least not yet. Just try to remember.
She argued that Trump represents an existential threat to democratic values and must be covered accordingly. But as Maher calmly pointed out, treating your viewers like they can't handle complexity might be part of the problem, not the solution. During the segment, Maher acknowledged the serious issues with Donald Trump's behavior and policies. However, he urged his viewers and Ruhle to not fall into the trap of pre-hating everything the man does. The bigger issue, he claimed, was not Trump himself, but the way media companies have turned politics into content, creating caricatures instead of conversations. He asked, what happens when media figures start shaping narratives before the facts are even in? And what do we lose when media becomes an arm of partisan warfare instead of a watchdog? Ruhle pushed back, pointing to the dangers of normalizing authoritarian rhetoric. But the discussion took a more serious turn when Maher brought up specific examples, cases where Trump's policies, though controversial, had some merit or were echoed by the Biden administration. This wasn't a defense of Trump, Maher insisted. It was a call for intellectual honesty. Online, the reaction was electric. Maher was praised on X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube for saying what needed to be said. Some progressive viewers felt betrayed, accusing him of giving Trump a pass. But many independents and center-left commentators defended him, arguing that media should inform, not indoctrinate. This is why I stopped watching MSNBC, one Reddit commenter wrote. They make everything a crisis. Maher's right. We're exhausted. The turning point came when Maher turned to Ruhle and calmly said, "You guys have become addicted to the drama, and people can tell. That's why they're tuning out." That line cut deep, and it hit harder because it wasn't delivered with anger, but with disappointment. The look on Ruhle's face said it all, a mix of disbelief and discomfort, as if the emperor had just been told they had no clothes. At that moment, the live audience went almost silent. It was no longer a debate. It was an intervention. Maher wasn't defending Trump. He was defending the audience's right to make up their own minds without being fed predetermined outrage. This wasn't just a win in debate terms. It was a moment of cultural clarity. A voice that many see as traditionally liberal was now questioning the very institutions that claim to speak for liberals. And that shook people on both sides of the spectrum. Since that episode aired, both Maher and Ruhle have remained firm in their positions. But the public conversation has shifted. Maher's take has been echoed by independent journalists, Substack writers, and political centrists who feel alienated by traditional networks. On the other hand, MSNBC has doubled down on its editorial stance, seeing itself as a necessary counterweight to right-wing extremism. But the big takeaway here isn't just about one debate, it's about trust. Who do we trust to tell the truth? Can we trust anyone? And are we, as a society, even interested in nuance anymore? Maher's central message was clear. Journalism that treats viewers like enemies or children is journalism that loses relevance. If the media wants to survive in a fragmented, skeptical world, it has to do better, not louder. What do you think? Is Bill Maher right about the media's obsession with outrage? Or did Stephanie Ruhle have a point about accountability in the age of Trump? We want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. And if you're into fearless political commentary that doesn't play for clicks or teams, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got a lot more truth bombs coming your way.